Welcome all. In the last video, we saw how we can create a graph in UltipaGraph, create nodes, create edges, and query them. In this tutorial, we will see how we can query the UltipaGraph for various nodes that we have created. Refer to the previous video to see how London Tubes graph was created. Now, as a continuity for the same, we will look at the same graph and we will see how we can retrieve the information related to various nodes. We will see this one by one. First, I am going to execute this query: find nodes dot open parenthesis close parenthesis n and return in star. What does it mean? It means that, right, irrespective of the name of the node, maybe there could be two names. One is the station, another is the default. Irrespective of the name of the node, get me all the nodes. And when we say n open parenthesis star open parenthesis, it's like select star, which means that select all the columns, in the table. Here it refers to select all the properties of the node. So let me run this. Once I run it, I have this ID, which is the ID of the node called the station, and this is the name of the station, and this is a unique identifier which UltipaGraph uses internally. So let me go to the next query. Here, right, instead of selecting all the nodes, right, we are restricting ourselves to only one node, which is called the station. So when I am referring to the node name, I will have to put the @ symbol before the name of the node, and I can execute the query to get only the station nodes. So I get all the properties. Since I have given n curly braces star close to curly braces, I will be able to get all the properties. So I get all the properties for the node called station. In the next query, right, I am trying to see what are the nodes, because if you see, right, there is a node called default by default in the UltipaGraph. So let us see, is there any node which contains default. Since there is no node which belongs to the type called default, this will return null. Okay, no result. So let me go and check in case if I have to get more than one node, right, what I have to do is, this is what I have to put inside the nodes function, right. I will have to put the name of the node. That's what we usually do. Now in case if you like to get more than one node, you will have to put all the nodes, name of all the nodes one by one, and separated by the R symbol. So now in this case, right, let me run the query. It will return both the station and default. Since there is no node which belongs to the default, right, there is no result for default. So let's me go and return this, execute one more query. What if I write the name of the node wrongly? Now in this case, if you see, actually I have given the name called default, but the name of the node is default, but I have put the D in uppercase. So this should actually be failing. So let me run this. Once I run this, if you see, actually the default node not exist. That's error message. So I can go and correct it now. Now I would like to get only one property. Now if I say right n star, right, I get all the properties. What if I need to pick only one property? Now this is what I have to do. To get a specific property of a node, right, I simply say, right, now this, the first sentence gives me the collection of all the nodes. Now I would like to get only the station names. So I type n dot station name. So I get all the station names. So next query is, right, I want to pick up only the station name right now, if in case if it is called oval. So I put a condition here. Now earlier, right, I was only giving the name of the node. Now besides giving the name of the node, I would like to check if the station name property of the node equals to oval. So I have two things to specify. One is the name of the node and is the property of the node, and then the value to be compared. So now in this case, right, for oval there exists a value called station called oval, and I get the ID, which is the unique identifier 228 which we loaded. Now let me go back and check, instead of this equal to oval, right, what are the other conditions I can put? I can put contains. Okay, to check if the station name contains OV, right, you return the station name. Let me run it again. So I get oval. Okay, so in case if there is anything, let me check if there is anything called GR. Okay, anything contains GR. Many green, anything that contains green. So let us restrict ourselves to only green. Anything that contains green. Maybe properly we can now put park. Park would be a better word, because that will help us to see less number of nodes. No, even park. So if it's very evident that, right, green and park are very common names in the station names. So let's go into the next query. Now instead of the node name, right, I would like to check the other properties. So I would like to check what are the stations now which actually have these values. I know as ID 228, 229. So I will let put up in class. So when I have to compare with multiple values, right, I have to use the in class. So I put the in class, and these are the values that I want to compare 228 and 229. Run the query. I get all the properties of the node. Okay, that's called oval, and another is called Oxford Circus. Now let me go to the query here. I simply return. This query is not different from the ones which we saw earlier. Only thing is it will result, the results will be limited to only 3 records. Now if you see actually, right, it picks up, there are plenty of nodes now for station. However, the query results, returns only 3 mainly because we are limiting, you are using the limit 3 as station, limit 3. Okay, so before the return class is called, right, because return gives you whatever properties you want to return for the particular node. Now in this case, right, we put limit 3, which means that the previous step find, right, will pick up only 3 values. So once the return is called, right, it will only return 3 records which are picked in the previous step, and we get only the 3 session names. Now if I go and run it again, I get the same 3 results. So internally, right, somehow UltipaGraph, limits the number of records, and it gives the same 3 records every time when we run it. Now the next step, this is when we want to pick up multiple values, right? Now and collect 228 000 229 as ID, and then what we are doing is find nodes ID equal to ID. So in this case, right, earlier we did equal to oval, and then we did compare or contains OV or contains park or contains green. Then we used the in class. Now what we are doing is a little tricky. We want indirectly we are using the in class. Okay, so we have a collection of values 228 000 229. Now all I am going to do is this collection of values I am declaring it as ID. So next time, right, I am trying to call the find nodes method, and I am trying to check the property if the ID equal to the value ID. So now this step will be executed for every value here. So every time the step is executed, for first time it will be executed for 228, next it will be for 000, next it will be executed for 229. Now I am putting the optional mainly because in case if it doesn't find a node, it has to return a null. So I execute this. I have 3 values, 228 exists, 229 exists, but for 000 there is nothing. There are no node which has a value ID value called 000, so it returns a null. Now the next thing I am doing is I am removing the optional class. Now this is what I do next. If you remove the optional class and execute it, right, I get only the 2 records because the 000, even though query has been executed 3 times, for 000 there is no node which contains a value which has ID value equal to 000. So that record is totally discarded. Unlike earlier, wherein the results had a null, in this case we will have only the valid values. Now, so last query, right? This is what I do. I would like to get more than one property out. Okay, so what I'm doing is this is what I'm doing. I'm going to execute this find not nodes function ID equal to some value multiple times, and as many values are present in the ID collection, right, it will be executed. However, now when I want to return, I would like to return 2 things. One is the name of the station, another is the ID. So when I do execute, right, I get a collection of 2 columns. One is the station name and ID. This is what I have. So the list of station names will be present under this particular tab. End.id will be, the list of IDs will be present under the end.id tab. In the next tutorial we will see how we can query the edges. Thanks for watching.